Welcome, everyone, to episode 0 of the Wildstorm Addiction Podcast. And we want to welcome you to our pilot episode. For those of you who have been listening here at the Comic Addiction, you've probably heard me on the Image Addiction Podcast with Chris Parton and Mike Smith doing some of their retro reviews. And tonight we're going to be talking solely about Wildstorm, which is something that... as many of you have seen throughout the net, you've seen my call name as Grifter78. You see that obviously I really love this company, and so Ben and I are going to talk some Wildstorm with you tonight.
Yeah, and others who have seen me around in various forms as Yo-Yo Master. I'm the annoying one. And we'll be talking about Wildstorm for the weeks of 3/31 and 4/7. So we got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah, and I want to thank Ben for agreeing to do this with me, because this was an opportunity that was given to us, and it was just really cool to find another person who I already knew, liked Wildstorm a lot, and it was just really cool that he was willing to come on and give us a try. So thanks for stepping up, Ben.
Oh, you're welcome.
For those of you out there who have never heard Image Addiction, or never been to the Wildstorm boards, or seen any of us discussing, or Ben and I both hail from the Wildstorm Resource Wiki. If some of you never been to that, you can find that on Google just by typing it in. It'll be the first thing that pops up. But
pretty much,
we'll just we'll take a few minutes to let you know a little bit about us. I've been pretty much following Wildstorm since the beginning. I followed Jim Lee when he left X-Men, and followed a lot of Image comics in the early days. But there was just something about the Wildstorm universe that just really spoke to me. So that the characters just really attached to me. Obviously Grifter, I mean, for those who've seen my Twitter page and everything else, Grifter just pasted here, out there, and all over the place.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So there's obviously the Wildstorm universe has had its ups and downs over the years, and I've followed them during both, and I'm just glad that after 15 years, dear God, I can't believe it's been that long, but after 15 years worth of this company existing, I'm just glad that I get to kind of share the love, that I have for it out there, and hopefully people will give this company a try based on some of these reviews that we're going to be doing here tonight.
I also have been with Wildstorm throughout its tenure. I started collecting when I was 12. My stepbrother had showed me a lot of the Uncanny X-Men that Jim Lee was doing. And at that time, I was not into comics at all. And I said, hey, what should I pick up? And he mentioned this artist that I really enjoyed, and I did a lot of copying of since I had the artistic nature. He told me that he was starting his own comic book company, so I kind of jumped on board right there with Wildcats #1, and I've been hooked ever since. I went away from it for a little while during college and those years, just due to money, really. But I came back the last couple of years and don't know why I ever dropped it, because it was amazing, and had to go back and pick everything up that I had missed.
Speaking of money, I always made the joke, that, for the ups and downs of the Wildstorm universe, I could always afford them above everything else,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Even today, it's amazing how inexpensive they are. And you look at those first couple years that they started, and they were still under Image. The amount hasn't really changed too much, so can't complain.
Yeah. So anyway, tonight we're going to be discussing some of the recent releases, and let's go ahead and start with the Authority number 21, which is written by Mark Bernardin and Adam Friedman, with art by Al Barrionuevo. And we got a nice cover by Walt Simonson, which connects with Wildcats number 22, which is out on April the 28th. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into this review. The first thing that's notable about this issue is it is the last issue for this creative team. It was announced that this is the 4th issue they've done, and for some reason they're leaving the book. No official reason has been given, But I can personally say that regardless of the reason, I'm really sad that they're leaving because they've done an awesome job with this book so far.
They really have. I think a lot of people are sad about that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are some people that I've seen at the boards that are kind of taking it almost as the last straw. I was sorry to see that, that they were really excited about this, and we were going to go 12 issues, strong with this team, which, Wildcats is still obviously going to do, but,
right.
There was just a lot of the what I consider the diehard fans, because I've been on the boards long enough to know who's the diehard fans.
Right.
And they were kind of upset. They were still talking about it today when I was logging on. But the good news is that they gave us a really good final issue. I mean, they really literally just hit the ground running with this, and some people complained about that, and some people thought that was really cool because we literally when they took over 4 issues ago, we had the Authority ship, the carrier, being called back to some distant, we don't know, it's a planet, we don't know where it's going, but somewhere deep in space, somebody's calling out to the carrier, calling it back, apparently. And you had this wild scramble between all the teams, who's going to get on the carrier and go try something new, who's going to stay back on Earth, which of course has been decimated for the last 2 years since the World's End event, began. And that was part of the motivation behind mixing up these teams, which is another thing that unfortunately has come under criticism, is that the characters who were exclusive to the Authority once upon a time and exclusive to Wildcats and exclusive to Gen 13 were basically just shaken up, mixed up, as random could be, who chose to get on the carrier and who chose to stay behind. And honestly, I thought it was very bold. It was a very bold move.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They really gave us a great arc. I mean, despite the fact that they, are cutting short, their promised 12 issues, you really can't complain with what they put out for these 4. I mean, they're awesome. Yeah,
but like I said, you've had 3 issues where, it's just been, the carrier's going and some people got stuck on it who didn't want to get stuck on it, even regular people, not non-super powered people. And so you had conflicts with that. You had refugees uprisings. And they're about to run right into the middle of the planet Damon, where the Wildcats, nemesis, the Damonites come from. So it's like, not only do they not have a chance to breathe, all of a sudden they're, in the middle of another conflict, and they got internal conflict, and it's just like, chaos.
Oh, there's a lot going on. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, here in this issue, what was so cool about it is that we finally get to catch our breath, and so do the characters. There was lots of character moments in this. What was some of your favorite character moments in this, Ben?
Well, I think a lot of people are going to notice Christine stomping through a few panels and basically telling Hawksmoor to nut up. It was pretty good.
Yeah, so that was really great. Obviously, Christine Trelane, who hasn't gone by the name of Synergy for a long time, but most people probably remember her as Synergy from Stormwatch. But her and Jax Hawksmoor have been having this little power struggle, and I don't think either one's really won yet.
No, and not only does she, walk right past him, she walks right up to the high and is like, "Hey, man, same thing. Not just nut up, but hey, I can help you. Help yourself. Let me help you." So,
yeah, that was one thing. You've got I think that's one thing that people are taking for granted about this, is that I think people are so stuck on, oh, you've messed up the Authority, oh, you've messed up the Wildcats, they're not the same team, you don't have the same characters. I think they're so focused on that they're not really looking at what's happening here and what this creative team has done in taking these characters that I get why these people are angry. There's a lot of stuff that we all loved from Warren Ellis's run and stuff. But these characters are being put into the situation where they've made some bad choices. I mean, the world pretty much ended, and it was their fault, and that's not something to be taken lightly. It's not something, for the first time in comics, it's being treated like it should have been treated in any other end of the world type story we should have seen, which is that it needed to not just mess up the world, but mess up these characters.
No, I agree, and that's good that you point that out. I mean, they really even dive clear back to Ellis's, the end of the Stormwatch Volume 1 run. I mean, Build a Better World, these guys have been screwing up ever since that, when the Authority was created. They have yet to accomplish that, so they're still hinting at that. All these characters, they might not be the core Authority, but they all understand that, and they all realize that they've screwed up. So this isn't just what's happening now, it's what's happened over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And that building a better world, I mean, I'm sure the Authority had a vision for that, and they tried everything they did, up to taking over the U.S. at one point, which to me totally made sense based on the path they were taking. But then this, to me, makes the most sense for the next logical step. It's like you basically were gods, and now you've been brought down, and that's what Dan and Andy Labnett's run was all about, was deconstructing this team. And now they're coming out of it, and some people have said, well, they're powered up again, and so there's that struggle, just like you mentioned with Jack Hawksmoor. There's that struggle to, okay, I've got my powers back. Do I just return to my old ways? Just being a jerk, pushing people around, bullying people around, and making them, truly being the Authority and making them do what I want, what I think is best.
Right. Yeah, and they can't even. Sorry, they can't even. They can't do that anymore on Earth. I mean, they still are finding the struggle on the carrier. They have all these refugees, and they don't really know what to do with them. I mean, before they would just smack them around, put them in their place, but now, I mean, they don't even know their way around the carrier. That's one problem. The other problem is, how do you take care of all these people? So, I mean, that struggle continues.
Yeah, who some don't want to be taken care of by superheroes anymore.
Exactly.
Which is very understandable. I mean, all of a sudden, the people who you thought were protecting you are the ones. I mean, it's the ultimate betrayal, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we trusted you, and you let us down. So, and now you want to fix it, and I guess the wound, I guess you could say, is still too fresh. The reactions that some of them are having to the heroes is like, yeah, that's probably the way a lot of us would feel too. Is if our heroes messed up in such a way that is like, it's almost irreversible.
Yeah.
That's what we established in Christos Gage's Wildcats run, that all the easy way outs of this have been taken care of, and then this is not going to happen, which was great.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the engineer, what happened to her?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was, again, going on these characters going through some changes. She's gone through a lot of changes since World's End.
Yeah.
She's had a very cool arc. She started, obviously where she lost her powers completely, and then she got them back, but they weren't really working right.
Nope.
And, then finally it seemed like she was back to the engineer as we know her.
Yeah.
And then she disappears, the beginning of this arc, and here we see that she's bonded with a carrier.
Yeah.
for good this time.
Yeah, like Nia, she's the one.
Exactly. And, that's one of those things that you would hope that it lasts. If everything else that they've been doing is going to last, which it has, thankfully, so far, that's one of those things. It's like, okay, Angie pretty much is the carrier now.
Yeah, the way that they wrote it, I don't really see how they can tear her apart from it right now. I mean, they seem to. I mean, at one point, they tell her that Angela Spica's consciousness is logged off or something like that. I was like, wow. It's impressive.
Yeah, but it's very cool because it that's a change. That's a cool change for that character, and it opens up a whole new world of stories that they could tell. And it's probably linked, I would assume, to what's going on with the carrier. That it's heading out into space, and it'd be interesting to know if it did that on purpose, because obviously it's the carrier feels, so it feels what's going on in within itself with all the heroes and the refugees.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is their answer. I mean, like what did you think about that scene with her and the refugees where she makes the beds for them?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you can see, because there is that relationship with the the carrier and the people that reside on it. You can see immediately after she had done that, she had felt the sympathy for them. Right after she did that, the refugees were kind of viewing her as their deity. I mean, they were immediately like on their knees worshiping her, which is kind of creepy, but you kind of understand where they're coming from too, because they were pretty miserable for a long time.
Yeah, and then she makes the comment, "We are unfamiliar with this," she says.
Yeah.
So the carrier is not used to being worshipped, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a lot going on, really. I mean, each character kind of has their own thing going on. The new Century Baby River, he's got his thing going on where he kind of knew that the engineer was going to come online at some point, and she makes it pretty apparent that he's a target. Wherever they're going, he's their target. So they do have to protect him. All of them do. I just don't think that they realize that yet.
Yeah, naming this little boy River as the new Century Baby, and apparently the Century Baby of information, which totally makes sense for the 21st century. That was a really cool idea.
Yeah, river flow of information. Yeah, it's good.
But it also raises questions about, well, what truly happened to Jenny Quantum then? If there's a new Century Baby, does that mean that she's gone? Like really gone?
I don't know. Yeah, you never know. There was also an interesting thing with Roxy and Deathblow. There's been, Roxy's training once again. And, she had really been training this whole past year. And even Deathblow kind of gives her a little hint like, hey, maybe you can make a shield. So I'm not quite sure why they've been building up Roxy for the past year, but it's interesting to see what they'll do with her, because, honestly, she's been doing a lot of build up. So hopefully they don't just let that go.
Yeah, because for those of you who haven't been following Gen 13 and are wondering about the weird costume changes, they were mentored by the superhero team called the Paladins, which was introduced in the Number of the Beast storyline, which is basically a lost Wildstorm team, and they trained the Gen 13 kids kind of the way you would, a next generation of superheroes, and which is the explanation for the costumes that they got, which are more traditional. And of course, when everybody was scrambling, some of the Gen 13, well, actually only Roxy and Rainmaker made it on the carrier as far as the Gen 13 kids, right?
Yeah, that looks like the case.
Yeah, so Roxy, who I think, wasn't she named the official leader there towards the end of one of the story arcs?
It seemed to be that way. I don't know if they officially said it, but it was obvious that she was leading the team.
Yeah, because I think Grunge mentions that either in the Wildcats issue or right before she jumps on the carrier. I think he makes a comment about that. But point is, it's interesting because there's only one other Gen 13 member here, which is Rainmaker. So
right, and she's kind of been doing her own thing for the whole past year. So she really only makes a small cameo and asks to know what's in Jack's box.
Yeah. Jack's box. Yes, that's one mystery that the current creative team has left us, which is
Jack in the box.
Yeah, there you go. So that's going to be interesting to see. It would also be interesting to know if what this team had when we finally find out what's in the box, if it was what they already had planned, or if the new creative team changes it a little bit. But I guess we'll know until we get there. So, but yeah, Roxy really did step up. She called Deathblow a bitch. Come on. that takes some guts. This is Deathblow we're talking about. So,
right. Well, she's definitely getting better with her powers, which is,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. So,
There was another really fun interaction with Flint and Grifter kind of being caught. Flint playing with his gun.
oh yeah, yeah. Benjamin Santani's not gonna like that.
Oh no.
As far as I know, they're still married, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Is she getting a little cabin fever? I don't know.
well, that's what she gets for running away from her husband,
Yeah.
Just because she sees her dead Stormwatch buddies come back to life, and then, of course, the world ends, and she's like, oops, my husband, I lost him, or where is he? No, we don't know either, so... But, yeah, that was pretty cool.
You want to talk about the exciting conclusion?
Yeah. Yeah, those pesky Night Tribe.
I'm telling you what, they show up all the time.
You think you blast off into space and you're going to be free of all the vampires, werewolves in the world, and then, they just happen to hijack on the carrier too.
Yeah, as if Daemonites aren't bad enough,
Yeah. So, just a string of bad luck, I think, for the people on the carrier.
Yeah. I have a feeling that might be a little short-lived, but I don't know if that was a device used just, to help them end their arc or what, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, it was a good cliffhanger, because...
for sure, yeah.
A lot of people were wondering if the Night Tribes had been completely eliminated, because over in the Stormwatch comic before it got canceled, Winter basically nuked them with himself, Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
So, a lot of people thought, of course, we kind of always know that they're not really gone, but he sure took a big chunk of them away,
They're like cockroaches. They just always come back.
Yeah. So anyway, so that, like I said, definitely a really good issue of the Authority. Really, really sad that this team is leaving, but we've seen preview work from the new creative team coming, and the art looks really good. And if they're going to keep the notes or whatever that this team had and put their own spin on it, very similar to what Keith Giffin's doing on the Authority last year, I'm all for it. So. Why don't we go ahead and give our ratings for this issue? I'm sure some of you have seen it. If you've seen the written reviews at Comic Addiction, you see that we give ratings 1 to 10, 1 being the worst comic ever and 10 being the best comic ever, with all the numbers in between. And I really thought this was an 8, which is on its way to greatness. And because it was so... It focused on the characters so much, and that was something that I'm glad that they got to do at least one time before they left the comic, because these characters just been scrambling for their lives, and there's no time to just stop and, let me tell you a little bit about myself, It's like, no, we're going to die. We need to do something. So finally, we get a good sense of the character, so I really enjoyed this issue a lot. What about you?
I did as well. I actually gave it a 9, which is excellent, and I just thought it was very fast-paced. There was a lot going on. There was transformations happening. We learned a lot about the team that's been created, and we're set up with a cliffhanger that's exciting. Who knew the Night Tribes were still around, and they're on the carrier. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what happens next with it.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next comic then, if you'll take that one, Ben.
Sure. We're actually going to be reviewing Sparta number 1 and 2. We realized that Sparta number 1 came out a little bit earlier in March, but just to catch you up, we figured we'd review both of them. So, Sparta USA, written by David Lapham and art by Johnny Timmons. This is one of Wildstorm's creative properties, so it's not part of the Wildstorm universe proper, but it is about a small town called Sparta. It's a really odd book, honestly. I think we both have our own opinions about this book. It's got magic in it. It's got a lot of political things going on in this book. At least I felt that way. It's about the main character, Godfrey McLean, who is the number one quarterback ever in the town of Sparta. Basically, he holds all the records, and 3 years ago, he disappeared into the mountains. Now, the town of Sparta is a small town in the foothills of some mountain range. We don't really know, but they're surrounded by mountains, so it's kind of secluded. It's cut off. I would assume that there's no airport because these people don't leave this town. He goes off into the woods, and the townspeople are scared of the Yeti. That they really only refer to it as the Yeti because the Yeti eats people. So they assume that their number one star, Godfrey, has been eaten by the Yeti. The town is also led by a blue-skinned person, which... and all the other townspeople are normal, and they don't seem to have an issue with this blue-skinned guy leading them.
Yeah, I was going to say that's right. Y'all heard him right. He said a blue-skinned person. You forgot to mention what color skin Godfrey's is.
Godfrey's is red. Just so you know, there's a lot of political things going on in this book.
Just listening to you summarize that book just reminds me just how odd it really is.
It is odd.
I kind of think about, David Lapham going to Wildstorm and pitching this, and I kind of imagine that it's just like the way you did it. It's like...
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, the town is really wrapped around football. Football is the all-American sport, and Sparta is so deeply entrenched into this. I don't know how to explain it anymore because I'm from the city of Pittsburgh. Sixburg. So being from a town that is very entrenched in football, I can't imagine this because they have, they listed off, a 9,900 population town that has 30 odd pro teams. I'm like, how is that possible? That would make the percentage of people in the town, like 20% play football professionally or some odd number. It's insane.
And now that you brought that up, is it that they play, those teams within Sparta play each other? Because I was explaining this to a friend today, and that was his first question when I mentioned that Sparta was isolated. He was like, well, then who do they play?
I assume so, and that's, they don't really say that they leave the town, and so you kind of have to believe that they have to play each other. There's leagues within Sparta, so 9,900 people, a lot of them are playing against each other. So let me get back to some of the main characters that we meet. So we meet this blue-skinned fella that is leading the town, and his name is Maestro, which is means teacher, which is kind of odd because you right away realize that this character is kind of seedy, and most red-skinned people are great. But you can see that Maestro is really all about keeping the people only thinking about Sparta and not making sure that they're not questioning what's outside of Sparta, what's beyond the mountains.
I was going to say, it's interesting you brought up how it's hard for you to relate to all this, because for me it's the total opposite, because I grew up in a small Texas town. I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Varsity Blues, that's my town minus the strip club. We didn't have a strip club, but that's it. That's what Sparta is describing is the quote unquote all-American town to the umpteenth degree. It's just like so out. It's like Pleasantville if they focused on football. Yeah.
And, I guess I understand that. Yeah.
But yeah, because I get that whole thing about where that's it, and it's all these the small town values, and everybody knows everybody, and he just basically took everything stereotypical about a small small American town that focuses on football and just put it in here, But as we see, later, that's not really the case. That's just a front.
Yeah, that's what's to keep the townspeople happy. And I think he did do a good job of setting that feeling up of the football just lifestyle as far as like middle school and high school and how dedicated families and just people in general are. I mean, even when you're in your 60s and you live in one of those towns, I mean, you still follow it religiously. Mm-hmm. And you're either coaching or on the sidelines every game cheering them on.
Yeah.
What did you think of the art of this book?
The art is funny for me because it's really good. It really is. It's really detailed. It's kind of got this darkness to it, which fits the parts of this book that kind of get a little dark. And so, but I'm not 100% sold on it, and I can't pinpoint why. I mean, it's good art. I mean, but I just maybe it's just the whole oddness of the story that I can't concentrate on the art, But it is good art. There's something about the main character, Godfrey. I would love to know if he's referencing some of these facial expressions from somewhere, or if Johnny Timmons is really just pulling that out of his mind, because some of the close-ups of that character. I mean, I think it's probably because of the red face that it gets you to focus in on him. But that I will say, there is some really good shots of him. Timmons' style is obviously very realistic.
I can't imagine he's not referencing somebody. If you're about halfway through this book, there is a close-up of Godfrey, and it's spitting image Colin Farrell. I mean, you would have to pull it up, look at him,
yeah.
And I mean, you just know it. You're like, he was looking at a picture of Colin Farrell.
That's good. That's good. I that was probably what was trying to register in my mind.
Yeah, it's actually kind of creepy if you didn't. Yeah, it took me a while. I was like, who is that? I know that actor.
No, you're right. Oh, you're so right on that. Now I'm looking at that. That's Colin Farrell.
Yeah,
it was
I know. I like the art. I think that it's really the inks. It has heavy lines in it that makes it look different. But it reminded me of something from my youth, and I was trying to think of what that was. And I know that there have been many like Bible story adaptations in comic book form or storybook form, and it just reminds me of something like that used to have heavy lines like that. That's all I could really think of. I was like, man, this just feels like that.
Yeah.
There was also a great panel that kind of is just tiny right off the get-go when they're trying to set up the feel of this town and football and the all-American spirit, and they just throw it in there in a corner, and it is a riff of American Gothic, the famous painting. I think it's on the third page, second panel. And if you're not paying attention, they have NRA buttons on.
Yes,
and
yes, I did see that.
You can barely see it, but he's holding a rifle up, and she also has a rifle, and it kind of in the same shape, everything.
Yeah, that's a good. You know what? That's one of those things that I just kind of skimmed over, and it might have clicked, but I was. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's something subconscious that you would have read it real quick, but you would have got the spirit behind it. Mm-hmm. Even if you hadn't picked up on, that is exactly the American Gothic painting, just in a different way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what he was doing, but...
I'm pretty sure. I mean, based on everything else he put, first panel is a big American flag.
Right.
I was just waiting for the panel of the apple pie,
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, so is there anything else about the first issue you want to say before we kind of go to the second?
I don't. I thought it was great as a setup piece, but I don't. There was also a variant cover, just so everybody knows. I don't have the artist, but...
It was actually Dave Lapham, because I put that variant cover up at Comic Addiction. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Look at you. You're on top of it.
Yeah, I try. I want him to keep me, so...
I gave this book a 7. I thought it was above average, slightly above average. I thought it was good setup. It was intriguing. You saw the magic a little bit. You're kind of wondering what's up with these two colored skinned dudes. And
Yeah.
that didn't come out right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, they know what you mean. We're talking about somebody who's blue and somebody who's red, and we really mean that. That's the colors they are in the comic. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever political statement he's trying to make, it's kind of getting lost in all the weirdness, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
I gave this a 7 as well, slightly above average, because it just didn't, it was weird, but it didn't wow me, and that's the thing with me in the first issue, is that it was intriguing enough for me to be like, okay, let's see where we're going, so that's what I thought about that. And then, issue 2, which I'll let you continue, gets even more interesting.
Yeah, it really does. And I was actually pleasantly surprised because I hadn't picked this book up at first. And, because we were going to be reviewing it, I went back and picked up number 1 and this past week, number 2. So I was kind of happy after I read number 1. I was like, wow, I'm glad I picked this up because it's going somewhere. So Sparta number 2 released on April 7th. And, we continue after Gottfried had kind of showed his hand at the stadium, and we continue from there. The one thing I do want to point out real quick before we continue with this is kind of like the title screen where they list the creators on every book. Here we use the scoreboard, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
They put the title, they put all the creators, and then they put the score up, which is the issue number. So
Yeah, that is a really nice touch. They did that in the first issue too.
Yeah, exactly. So here we learn about the 3 Fs, which is fame, family, and football. And I have the feeling they lean on a couple of those more than another. We see a lot more magic in this one. We see, Gottfried healing himself and doing a lot of goofy things. We also see his restraint as he holds back from, basically easily killing, Sparta's latest hero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a pretty good fight.
Yeah, it was cool. And we see a lot more of the political stress between, Maestro and Gottfried. We also have all the women fawning off of Gottfried. he goes back to his old house, and they kind of follow him.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Gets his own little Charlie's Angels group going on.
Yeah, and we meet some new characters. We meet Nora, who obviously is, his love of his life. For the first time, we finally see who is doing all the voiceover, which is Ralphie, who now runs one of the stores in town.
Yeah, that was interesting to finally see who that was, because I was kind of curious, because it was obvious that it was not Gottfried. So that was interesting to see. See, the reason I'm struggling, like I said, is this book is so odd, it's kind of hard to describe. I mean, it's like, okay, basically here it is. Let me just throw it out there. You got redskin guy, no t-shirt, just looking like something out of the movie 300, but with red skin. He's got a sword. They're having the bonfire in the middle of the football field, and he's out there throwing a challenge, in the middle of the football game to the maestro to basically, release his control over the people. So this is not a scene that you would normally see at a small town football game. And this is part of what my brain is having trouble wrapping around. I'm like, what is going on here? And I think part of it is that since this is a brand new world, because it's a new comic, and they're never, first time we've ever seen stories in this world, you don't know what the rules are yet. You're still trying to figure them out.
No, not at all.
It's like if I was reading a superhero comic and this was happening, somehow I would accept this, But since I don't know where I am yet, I'm still kind of lost as a reader. I think that's why it's so hard to really be like, okay, this is what's going on, and I know 100% that this is what's going on, because I don't feel like that yet with this comic.
Yeah, it's tough because there are those, you have your core family values, which they list at the beginning of this one. But then you also have this political struggle, which they dive a little bit more into in this one. Maestro keeps talking about the president of the United States giving children to those that deserve it. And, they talk about the United States and nobody leaves this town. So how do they know if they're, how do they know anything outside of this little world that he's created for them? Because he cuts them off from it. I mean, children are being given to them from the president of the United States.
Yeah.
It's odd.
Yeah. And there's been no mention of TV, internet, communications. I mean, everything. You really get this sense that, yeah, they're isolated, and you don't know. I mean, there's no reason given yet. Obviously, I'm sure eventually, I hope we do, but yeah, you do get this sense of isolation. That's part of what's going on here as a reader. You're like, where am I? When can I go back to my normal world? Because I don't understand what's going on in this one.
Yeah, and they even set up the isolation a little bit more in this. I mean, there's all these beautiful pictures in the first issue of this town, how gorgeous it looks with the lake and the mountains and everything, and yet it's cut off. And they even talk about radiation zones outside of the mountains in this issue. So not only is there a Yeti in the mountains that you shouldn't go deal with, but there's also radiation zones outside of it. So does that mean that all of the rest of the United States is just gone? Or he definitely makes sure that people do not leave this town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the thing that I really am struggling with this, and unfortunately, I'm sure there's people who gave up on it on the first issue because of that reason, but I'm giving Lapham the benefit of the doubt here, because I'm like, okay, he's put us in a new world. He's tasked to let us know what's going on the best he can without revealing too much, and he's trying to craft a story within this world too, which the best I can tell is, obviously rising up and against a oppressive force, which seems to be, Godfrey versus the Maestro, which is a classic conflict, but it's this odd little setting that just kind of keeps you in this state of uncertainty that you're like, yeah, I know that story, but I don't know how it's going to play out here,
Yeah, and it's so just slightly off as far as the setting is concerned that it's intriguing. You're just like, this is strange. I mean, no town should be like this, so it's kind of hard to relate. And then right at the end of this book, we realize that Nora is not his wife, just his lover, because we run into his wife at the end, and she looks ticked. And supposedly she is the queen biatch of the town, because she seems to get her way no matter what.
Apparently, according to Ralphie, was that his name, who's still narrating, But yeah, that could... Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just trying to think of the two different books that we've reviewed tonight. Which has the scarier climax? The Night Tribes or Wanda McLean? I don't know. She looks pretty rough.
Rather than deal with your ex-wife, I think I'd take the Night Tribes any day. I mean, that's what happens here, folks. For those of you who are listening, his ex-wife shows up, and apparently she's got 3 kids with her. She's got her luggage. It's a scene out of a sitcom or a soap opera, and it's like, what is it doing at the end of this comic? It's got magic, and it's got, a red-skinned guy and a blue-skinned guy, and, a city that's covered in the mountains, and we don't know why, and all of a sudden his ex-wife shows up with the kids, and that's the cliffhanger, and it's like, what?
Yeah, I've never seen that in a comic book. And not only, I mean, it's ending with his wife coming back. They're still married.
Yeah. Like, sorry, honey, I've been in the mountains, and oh, by the way, my skin's red now. I'll explain that eventually, which he has not, of course. So, this comic's just weird.
It is.
But
what would you rate it?
I'm still stuck on my 7, just because I'm giving it. I'm really just giving him the benefit of the doubt. I try to be a lot more forgiving than a lot of people online that I see sometimes who give up on stuff really quick. I really want to give this a chance. I really want to see what he's doing, and I get the feeling that when all is said and done, when issue 6 is out, because it's a 6-issue miniseries, it'd probably be good to go back and reread it, because there's probably some stuff that's going to make more sense when it's all said and done. Or at least I would hope so, because then you can be like, oh, that's what he was talking. Oh, that's what this meant. Just a little. All I want is some aha moments. I don't want to be left in uncertainty forever. So.
No, I agree, and that's actually why I bumped this one up to an 8, because I think it is on its way to greatness. I think there's a lot going on in this book. I don't think it's just a struggle between good and evil. I think there's a lot of things that he's trying to say in this book. Mm-hmm. So we'll see where it goes, and I'm actually excited to see where it goes. Because like I said, I was not planning on picking this book up, and I'm really happy that I have, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, anyway, each week, we do go over some of the issues we bought, but they're obviously we can't pick up everything. But we would like to let y'all know some of the stuff that is out this week that did come out. So, Ben, if you'll let them know about what's out this week, besides what we reviewed.
Yeah, besides Sparta number 2 and the Authority 21 coming out, we have Starcraft Book One. Now, Starcraft Book One is a hardcover book, and if you haven't picked it up, you can pick it up at InStockTrades.com for $12.59, which is 37% off the cover price, which normally goes for $19.99. So, if you're a Starcraft fan, go and pick it up at InStockTrades.com.
Yeah, and I am a Starcraft fan. I hadn't mentioned that when we were talking about putting this together, but I am. But unfortunately, the book's not in my budget, so But I really do love those games, and the fact that they're putting out a hardcover, obviously there's some fans picking it up, so that's good to know. So I know it's continuing. It's definitely still going. So if you're a fan of the games, I know that there's a lot of characters. I've seen in the solicitation, there's a lot of characters in the games that they're incorporating into these stories, so that's pretty cool. That just about does it for our episode 0 of Wildstorm Addiction. I just want to take a little chance to thank Chris Parton and Corwin and the rest of the Comic Addiction staff for just the opportunity to do this podcast. I mean, I've had a lot of fun with Chris Parton and Mike Smith over at Image Addiction doing the retro reviews, and I hope we get the opportunity to do more of these Wildstorm-centered ones. Hopefully give people a chance to give Wildstorm a try.